Here for outrageous predictions, Doug Lesmerises, Nathan Baird, and Stephen Means for Ohio State, Penn State, 7:30 Saturday night in State College. Nathan Baird, what's your outrageous prediction for this game?
I can't believe I'm going to do it. We fall into this trap all the time. We talked yet today on Thursday on the Big Thursday pod, aptly named, about the routes that tight ends are running in this offense and what it means relative to what the wideouts are running in this offense right now, where it could potentially open up some options. I think Chris Olave is going to play Saturday. I don't know if that's an outrageous prediction, but it really sounds like he's probably going to play. So he and Garrett Wilson, I think, will be a big focus of what Penn State wants to do defensively. So I am taking Ohio State's tight ends to combine for 6 receptions on Saturday, a huge number, considering they may only have like 8 the rest of the season. But I think 6 of them are going to come on Saturday. Indiana's tight ends had a little bit of success against Penn State. Hendershot had a 40-yard reception. They had another tight end whose name is escaping me, but he had a couple catches, including a touchdown. Matt Bjorson or something like that had a couple catches, including a touchdown. So Indiana found a way to use its tight ends against Penn State. Now it doesn't have Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, but it does have Phil Yor, who's a pretty good receiver. So it's not like they're bereft of talent over the top of the defense. I still think Ohio State is going to counter off of what Penn State can do, trying to maybe take away those guys more, or maybe bring in a pass rush and you have less time, so you go with shorter routes. I think the tight ends will be more involved. They had 2 catches against Nebraska. I think they'll pull that against Penn State.
And they did. I think we talked about on one of the pods, sort of like some of the RPO looks where they have a little tight end in motion. They did throw one of those where Fields gave it on the read to the running backs a couple times, where if he had kept it, I think the read then would have been a throw to the tight end. He did throw it one time to a tight end on that you could see it. And sort of what you're talking there. There were just, we talked about, is there an adjustment by a defense that then opens things Ohio State tight ends? And you're just saying that adjustment happens week 2, that Penn State watches some of the film, and then when they maybe go to take away Olave or Wilson or the give to a running back, all of a sudden what Ohio State adjusts to is more Ruckert, more Farrell, more Houseman.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's going to – I mean, maybe Penn State will then adjust to that too. I don't know. But you also got to remember this is a team that's playing without Micah Parsons. You're taking their best defensive player off the field, who happens to be a linebacker, who is one somebody who would be normally involved in trying to match up with those tight ends.
And one of their starting safeties out for the first half because of a targeting call from the Indiana game. And also too, this might be Penn State's strategy. They might be fine. It's like, well, okay, let's take a little bit away from Olave and Wilson, and we'll let the tight ends catch some passes. It doesn't mean that Ohio State's going to put up 60 points because they use the tight end. They might use the tight end because Penn State does a good job somewhere else. If
it looks like what Ohio State did to Pat Freiermuth last year, which I believe was 6 receptions for 41 yards, then that's a good thing for Penn State.
Stephen, what's your outrageous prediction?
Yeah, so in the name of Justin Fields running more because Ryan feels comfortable with it, Justin's only had one 100-yard rushing game in his entire career, and it came against Massachusetts in a game where Kirby Smart was just playing all his quarterbacks for some reason. They threw like 17 combined passes, and Justin threw 8 of them.
But he ran because it was Massachusetts. I think that's your reason.
That's the exact reason why. But the point is,
that's the reason.
He had 100 yards in that game, in a real game where he's been a starting quarterback. The most he's had is against Nebraska last year with 72. And I think he'll have, like 18 rushes against Penn State on Saturday. I think he'll be in that range. And because he's off the leash and can take off and scramble and get yards whenever he wants to, I think this is when we see his first 100-yard rushing game. And since I have to make it outrageous, I'll say 120 just to, make it a little bit more outrageous. But the point of the matter is we see Justin Fields' first triple-digit rushing game as an Ohio State Buckeye.
And as we talked about, he did carry it against Penn State. He had 21 rushes a year ago, but he did not really get close to 100 rushing yards, 68. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting and smart prediction, and it completely goes against my prediction because if my prediction comes true, it's going to be really hard for your prediction to come true, just the way they count the stats. I'll predict outrageously 6 sacks for Penn State in this game. Ohio State gave up 5 sacks twice last year. Both times were against Wisconsin. Some good defenders. They sacked Justin Fields both times. This goes into the conversation that, is a big conversation topic this week, Stephen, that you and I have been asking Ryan Day about. And A lot of people have been asking Ryan Day about sort of the balance of between taking a sack for Justin Fields and trying to make a big play. And Ryan Day's a little more okay with it. But I'm putting a lot of this on not just like Justin Fields trying to make a play. Ryan Day said it when we had the wraparound with him on Thursday. And I was going to ask him about it, and then he just said it to another question I didn't have to ask. I think Shaka Toney and Jason Awe are some of the best defensive ends that Ohio State has faced in a long time. And they are the two best defensive ends in this game. And a lot of my analysis about this game is in my belief that Shaka Toney and Jason Awe are going to make life really strange for Ohio State's offense. I think they're tough matchups for the Ohio State tackles. I think Justin Fields is not accustomed to getting rushed like this all the time. And so I think he's going to be looking for plays, but I think he's going to have regular pressure. And it doesn't mean that they're only just going to come in and drag him to the ground right away. But I think we're going to see Justin Fields like moving around, escaping a first rush, holding on to it, then the second rush getting him, escaping a first rush, holding on to it, and hitting a big play. And then every now and then, I think they're just going to beat a guy and get in. I think they're really good. Shaka Toney, I'm going to talk about it and write about it in 50 different ways before the game starts. I rewatched the Penn State Indiana game, and then I immediately rewatched the Ohio State Nebraska game, and the difference in defensive end play I just thought was stark between what Penn State does on a snap-to-snap basis and what Ohio State did with their defensive ends on a snap-to-snap basis. So 6 sacks is a lot. It doesn't mean Ohio State can't win if Justin Fields is sacked 6 times, but I think it's going to be a monkey wrench thrown into the Ohio State offensive machine with the way these guys get after the passer. Those are our outrageous predictions. Make sure you're back on Friday for our game picks. And we'll also have that in our big Friday podcast on Buckeye Talk, our game picks and more analysis of this game. Saturday night, Nathan and Steven will be there. Make sure you're listening to Buckeye Talk and reading everything at cleveland.com/OSU.